Thanks everybody for being here. Welcome to CREGG, Commercial Real Estate Going Green's Lunch and Learn webinar about saving money and energy in your buildings. We're happy to have you all here on this fine Wednesday afternoon. I am Stephanie Zaplak with Stewart Title Guarantee Company, commercial title insurance and escrow services for commercial real estate nationwide and internationally as well.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Rika Erdely. I'm the founder and CEO of Green Economy. Green Economy is an energy consulting and construction company. We prepare energy compliance reports, conduct energy audits, and we are contractors, so we actually do the retrofits and the measurement and verification to make sure the savings are actually happening. So housekeeping. Just to let everyone know, all participants will be muted during the presentation. Please submit any questions via the chat or during the Q&A. We're all up for questions. This is going to be a really interesting topic. So please feel free to ask your questions, and this presentation will be recorded.
And then a couple of words about our upcoming speakers. On June 30th, in about 1 month, we've got the topic of designing green, building for health and sustainability with Nicole Cannon. Then coming up in July, we're going to do a case study with Suzanne Mellon about savings in green design and hospitality, the hotel industry. That's going to be really fun. And August 25th, we're going to have the topic of zero carbon buildings, everyday benefits, and a practical approach to decarbonization with Mabel Garcia Payne.
There's a hot topic right now, decarbonization, isn't it?
Sure
so
is.
We're really excited to bring in some partners that we work with. EMCOR is one of our partners in HVAC, and we have two experts today, Andy Sager and Tracey Jumper, who are going to be joining us and explaining what's going on with UVC and the whole approach from a mechanical perspective. Andy.
Good morning, everyone. I guess it's afternoon, isn't it? Thanks for having us here, and hopefully this will be informative to you. We're going to, if you want my bio at all, I've been with Mesa now EMCOR for 20 years. I've been the director of maintenance sales for that entire period. And so these types of presentations, we do them frequently. This is an interesting one because of the air quality aspect to it. Uh-oh, sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about just the mechanical part of it, and then Tracey Jumper is going to be getting more into the actual topic of the bipolar product that we're actually proposing that we're talking to today. So that's my bio.
Tracey.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I mean, we've been dealing with a lot of the same things you all have. So you know, my part in this is that we put together our same task force a year ago, much like you probably all have or have had some part in. So glad to be here and share our notes with that and share what we've seen and what our clients are doing and what we're doing. Thanks for having us.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
We'll go to the first slide then. There we go. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about where do we start when we're talking about IAQ, which is indoor air quality. Big topic, and we're going to address it in a couple of different ways today. But and then how to address it, what you need to do to maintain it, to create it, and to move forward with it, incorporating certain technologies, or just in this particular case, a specific technology. And how technology can enhance that. That is the needlepoint bipolar ionization product that Tracey will be getting into. We've done a lot of, and it's just one product that's out there, but we've used it extensively. So, and then we'll get a little bit into just a brief discussion on action plans, which you can do after you established a good program, and we'll end with that. So. Tracey, can go to the next one. So where do we start? What we want to do is we want to make sure that everybody understands that the consumer plays a big part in this. The consumer has to make sure that they're maintaining their systems before we even really get into the air quality products and the technologies that can assist with that. There's some things that you have to do, and you have to make sure that you're maintaining your systems, that they're clean, that you're doing routine, maintenance and services on them. That's a big part of this. Without that, you can have all types of products to help you with the indoor air quality component of it, but it's not going to work if you're not maintaining those systems. They work hard and they need to be maintained on a regular basis. As far as technologies and things that we get involved with, we've created a task force here at Mesa, which Tracey's a member, a big part of, that vets a lot of these products that come across our desk and from vendors that want us to promote their products. It's important that we have somebody that's looking at these, because not all these products work for everybody. So Tracey spent a lot of time with this particular product and bipolar product, and she does a good job finding the customers that really can use this. And again, a proper maintenance and creating a safe environment is the key, and that obviously includes their indoor air quality. So next slide. Okay, so we're going to focus on a few things, focusing on the air ventilation. The basic description of air ventilation is replacing old stale air and bringing in new fresh air. Your fresh air that's circulating through your system in your office, your building, wherever it may be, consists of the return air, the actual air that's in the building the majority of the time, circulating through that system. But then there's a component that brings in outside air at a certain measurement that mixes in with that air. And so there's a balance there that has to be, correct for any indoor air quality program like that. So we have to make sure that air is balanced and it's working correctly. And then adjusting that air, especially the intake air, we find on the mechanical side that most systems that are out there, and there's been a lot of studies done on this, when you're having the outside air coming into the building, whether it's through an economizer damper or just a fresh air damper, most of the time they're not set up correctly or even working, which limits the amount of air that's coming in mixed with the indoor air and causes problems. So you can have technologies that are trying to affect the quality or the cleanliness of the air, but you have to have that balance. If you don't have those balances and they're not maintained correctly, you're going to have pressure problems, you're going to have stale air, and you're going to have a lot of complaints. And depending on what industry you're in, that means unhappy tenants, renters, or just employees. Also creates health conditions where you start having HR problems. So very important that's all balanced. Okay, next slide. And then probably one of the biggest aspects to keeping fresh air, clean air, and the tenants comfortable is the filtration part and changing filters. In our programs, when we do them, we find that normally the filters in the air conditioning units or a filter bank inside a large central plant or something like that, usually they require to be changed quarterly. There is no standard necessarily for that, but on a quarterly basis with a regular routine maintenance program is what is usually required and usually performed. Using the right type of filter, the right filter media is super important. And right now, with the changes to Title 24 and also with this COVID situation, there's been a lot of change in the type of filter that you need to use. They're requiring now MERV 13 filters almost everywhere. We're getting so many requests for that, which are a more dense, higher efficiency filter. a lot more expensive, but they're being required now for most new colleges that are reopening and so forth, and buildings that are reoccupying. So been a big change in that, but they need to be changed on a regular basis. They need to be changed on that when you're doing that preventive maintenance program. It's key. Without that, it's not. You're not going to have the clean air that you need in there. So it's vitally important. Next slide. So then the last part of this is just, again, what must you do? You must maintain, change those filters on a regular basis. Test and repair of your equipment, making sure that that equipment is working correctly. Like I mentioned, the dampers and so forth, that you have the right proper airflow, the right pressures. That's key. And then just maintain, make sure you have that program where it's being done on a routine basis. It'll save you money. It'll save you energy costs. It'll save you frustration of downtime and repairs. Prolong the life of your equipment. It's vital. So maintenance plays a huge part in this.
So Andy, I have a question. Actually, how often should you change the filters? And then does that schedule change if you've upgraded to a stronger HEPA filter?
Good question. So like I mentioned, usually there are no standards that require you, unless it's a specific type of a situation, like a laboratory or a fume hood or whatever it might be. Normal standard procedures are usually on a quarterly basis. You can measure the pressure drop on filters when they load up, because these filters are designed to catch particulates that are coming through before they go into the airstream. There are no real standards for that if you're not measuring that pressure drop. So quarterly seems to be just kind of the go-to schedule. They may not even need to be changed quarterly at times, but when we're doing maintenance, a lot of times they're on a quarterly basis anyway. We're doing standard maintenance and we change the filters, during those times. And what was the second part of that?
The second part was, does that schedule change if you've upgraded to a stronger HEPA level?
It really doesn't, at least according to the filter people that I work with on a regular basis. The pressure drop is the key part to that, and we're not usually measuring that all that often. Some companies or some customers have gauges on their air handlers that'll measure that pressure drop. We've seen filters that can go a whole year without being changed. But again, to go back to the earlier slides, keeping them clean and fresh is key to the indoor air quality, and they should be replaced on a regular basis. We recommend quarterly on most every case, but there is no standards for that other than specifically written into a scope for a specific type of an environment. All right, Tracy's going to take it from here.
Yeah, so we did want to talk about some of the technology that we've been using. We did, it was important for us, like Andy said, to prompt it with, if you're not doing your regular maintenance and you don't have a good plan for that, and hey, maybe COVID's an opportunity to make sure that you're maintaining and that you've tested your equipment, that everything's working. If you're not doing that, none of this next stuff we're going to talk about is going to help you out, right? So baseline, well-maintained systems. Then let's talk about supplemental technologies that can really help and really help where you can't, upgrade filters because of pressure drops in systems. There's alternatives like UV lighting that you talked about last session. We're gonna hit more on the needlepoint bipolarization, ionization for this one. We do want to keep it high level. Certainly we can go all the way down to the physics and chemistry of all of this. We could put you in touch with manufacturers, engineering, technological support, whatever is needed. We can pass on those resources, but want to try to keep this high level for a general audience. Don't want to make it seem like we're skimming over some of the actual tech details, but if you have any questions, we've got a spot for that at the end. We feel like we've heard every question at this point over the last year. We've kept up with this technology. We've talked to the people who create it and tested it, and we use it in the field pretty extensively. So we feel like we have a pretty good gauge on it right now. But again, this is our super vetting of it and wanting to share those resources with you. So if I miss something, let me know. We can get you the answers on that, no problem, because we've gotten into specifics and highly detailed sessions that we can have another webinar down the line if we need to go into any of this specifically. So again, UV lighting, we like it. Right? We like all of these products. They work. Some didn't in the past. We'll get into that on the ionization side, but UV works. So we're not here to refute that. All of these products work if you use them the right way. If they're applied the right way, like UV, if the light is hitting every part of the coil, that's used to treat the coil. Ionization, we're going to talk about, works on the airstream. So it's a little bit different. And we want to pay close attention to that, because the installation specifics and having correct installations and making sure you're selecting the right equipment makes or breaks any of this. So as far as needlepoint bipolarization, we like this product for a number of reasons. It's easy to install, it's easy to maintain. We've got some bullet points on one of the next slides. But that being said, there's always specific applications and do's and don'ts, right? So some of the benefits, needlepoint bipolarization. Particle cleaning, it acts on particles in the air. They're charged particles. In layman's terms, they kind of zap contaminants, depending on what it is, a virus, bacteria, molds and mildews that are in the air that are on dust particles. It acts on it different ways, and that's a different physics conversation. But we like it for that reason. So we're not only treating the unit, we're treating the space. It's got proven effectiveness. One of the things that we wanted to vet early on was that, when you're testing products, the lab tests may not, really correctly simulate real life. And for ionization in general, that's been a problem over the years. The tube style ionization of old, the 20-year ago, ionization products did produce ozone. They had bad lab tests. So what we saw was that we were installing these products and immediately you could smell ozone. It has a smell to it. So we wanted to make sure that this needlepoint bipolar ionization, we were like, what is this? That was not anything that we saw before, because immediately we're like, no, thank you, ionization. But the lab tests tested the actual products that are used, the commercial type products. Sometimes you see that products test like model, 2000, and that passes the lab tests, but, we only want to use model 200 in the field, and that doesn't exactly. So the testing we were comfortable with, and then the pretty much no maintenance to it. It's got little bars, there's bigger units. The units that go on bigger coils they look like little Lego strips with, if you've ever seen a watercolor paintbrush set, the little plastic brush, it's got that all across, and that's what emits the ions. So it's just making sure that those brushes stay clean and free of debris. It's making sure that the electrical is installed correctly to begin with, and that's on and functioning properly. But other than that, there's no replacement parts. So it often gets confused in the media. Immediately we see that, needlepoint bipolarization is called out about how you have to replace the tubes or how it doesn't work and it creates ozone. And those are things that were attached to old ionization, completely different kind of ionization equipment. So when you're looking at that stuff, make sure you know that there's different types of ionization. So we wanted to do a little comparison. You had, you talked about UV last week. We're talking about ionization now. Again, we don't refute UV. It works. The light, anything it hits is going to kill organic matter. But again, you have to pay attention, make sure you have the right light intensity, that you're picking the right product, that you're replacing it you know, we do UV, so we know. As far as ionization goes, no detectable ozone. And actually, if you wanted to get into the science, the way the ionization, the ions are produced, the level of energy that's used actually can't break down oxygen molecules to create ozone. So it's a little bit more comfortable talking about that ozone discussion. Not only that, but it does pass a new UL standard, a newer type of testing that we're way more comfortable with. So we haven't seen any issues with that so far. They both, just like UV, obviously UV has no ozone to it, it's light, right? So even playing field there, we're good with that. Kills the same contaminants. Again, kills is a relative term. If you want to get into the technical on that, depending on if it's a bacteria or virus, it may deactivate it, you know, if it's DNA or whatever. The thing that differentiates the needle point is that it does work through the air. So, you know, if you're looking to treat the coil, both are a good option. If you're looking to make sure that, you know, your air is treated through the space, the NPBI may offer a better alternative. Another thing that we like is that there are no consumable parts. It doesn't contain some of the hazardous waste that you have with the UV. And it's safer as far as, you know, you can't interact with the UV light. You have to make sure that that's turned off before you're getting in and working on it. So again, as an alternative to UV, the one thing that was significant for us, a good checkpoint, was that we had the fires in California last year. We had a big government aerospace client, and we had started installing this, you know, to demonstrate, you know, does it work, does it not? It seems like good supplemental cleaning, you know, they had a good maintenance program there. When we had the fires, the workers there, the tenants, the engineers, the scientists wanted to work in, they were calling it GPS because that was the product that we were using. They wanted to work in the GPS buildings versus the non-GPS buildings because they had a marked difference of smokiness and versus clean air. So that was really cool. We were not expecting that, that result and that you know, level of satisfaction, but that was really good to hear. That was one of the first things that was kind of convinced us that this product was working. Since then, we've gotten to measuring ions and ion concentrations and voltages and making sure down to a T that this stuff was working as advertised. Again, I can't stress enough, when you're comparing ionization technologies and types of products, know that there are old technologies that didn't work that still are getting confused with these new technologies. And they're not that new, you know, they're 10 plus years old. They've been used in in hospitals across the country. The Texas Medical Center, the largest hospital in the country in Texas, it's one of the product's case studies. So they've got a good track record, but they're still confused with old technologies that had problems with ozone. Again, the type, the materials that are used, carbon brush emitters, don't require any replacement. It's just quick wipe down with the, you know, alcohol wipe once a year. We see that's needed more where there's diesel fuels and airports, that kind of air contaminants. Again, UL 2998, that's the new improved ozone test. You want to make sure that products pass that with the models that you're going to actually be using in the fields. This is compliant with the latest IAQ standard, so works for us because that's the standard that everybody's comparing their ventilation and air systems to now. That's what we use to design HVAC systems, right? And then, you know, easy to select, install, procure, maintain. They have COVID-19 data that we're happy with. And then we had a question on what, you know, ions in the air, you know, what's naturally occurring, because ions do naturally occur. So, you know, when everybody's concerned about safety and health effects, we're exposed to that constantly anyway. Now, levels of ions are different things. So naturally occurring ions, maybe in the order of like 50 to 500 ions per cubic centimeter. These products, we want to make sure to get the decontamination rates, whatever you want to call it, the effectiveness, that we're getting readings of 1500 ions per cubic centimeter. That's for both polarities. So when we get down into ions, science that we've all had in, 7th grade, charged particles, positive and negatively charged particles, laws of attraction and how particles act on each other, that we're measuring, 3,000 ions per cubic centimeter together, or 1,500 on the positive, 1,500 on the negative, and we have meters that actually measure that. So it's not some kind of theoretical thing. We can actually see that this equipment is producing that. So we can.
I had a question for you, Tracy. What about the implications for like students? Because I was out at a high school, and immediately we were proposing actually with EMCOR on this product, and they were talking about how the board is going to have to approve it, and all the parents are going to be coming in and want to know that information. So is there any negative implication on humans, especially growing humans that are still young? I think that's a concern maybe a lot of people have.
Yeah, we haven't seen any of that on our installations, and the manufacturers still, I mean, they maintain all their case studies, so they're into, I think $250,000 on this one as far as marked installs since COVID started, something like that. So they got a good bit of information on that. Again, they have been using it in hospitals for 10 plus years. So not just young growing humans, but also vulnerable ones that have health issues that are sensitive. So they're used in those spaces. As far as marked something that directly implicates the ionization with any kind of direct health implications, we haven't seen anything yet. So we're going to have to take the information as, hey, these are used in sensitive spaces. We haven't seen any issues, or nothing attributed to the ionization itself.
And also they might be just looking at old technology, as you were saying, right? They're looking at something that's way older instead of really focusing on the newer version of this. Newer being 10 years old.
Absolutely. If there's smells, or if you can feel the system, we see the opposite with this. So especially with the fires, when it was clearing the air, we've had it in an airport now where they had fuel fume smells. They noticed in the terminal without our soliciting anything. So when we got that feedback, that was convincing for us, because we're a maintenance company. We don't need to install any of the special thing to do our job and do right by customers. But where we can clear the air when there's smoke or fumes, then absolutely. And as long as we haven't seen any direct links to any health issues, then we're good with that. And if we did, and if it came up in the future, we would be the first to react on it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we only do existing buildings. We are a service company, so we've got to live with this as long as everybody else too, right? So we don't need to install anything special if it's not going to pay off, if it's not going to be a good long-term solution. So we had to put this through as much rigor as we could, right? We get more new information on all of this, on technologies and on technologies versus COVID pandemic information. We've seen the evolution of how to use masks and how important those are that we may not have thought before. So these are the same things. This is the best information we have, the industry has. We have clients that obviously like it, or that mark it as, I want to work in the building with this, or this building's cleaner, what did you do here, that kind of thing.
Hey, Tracy, while we're still talking about that, does it leave any sticky residue or anything visible?
Not that we've seen. And actually, again, it's just the opposite, where the perception and you know, I don't know how much is, you know, we can measure as far as when people feel the air is cleaner and there's less dust. But that's been the feedback from clients and customers and people visiting buildings, that they have to clean less in certain spaces. So they like that, you know, they feel like things are fresher. That's not what we saw with the ionization products of old. They were marked by smells and what's in this space, and it feels like the air feels thick. So these newer products are completely the opposite of that. So that's been nice, because we don't want any of those initial reactions from the old school types of ionization products. And we personally stick to certain types of products that have, you know, better features. So those are things that you'd have to vet there, just either for convenience or quality's sake. But needlepoint bipolar ionization is, you know, way different than a lot of the other ionization products.
It has become a very, very popular product, not just in Mesa, but in Southern California, Northern California, across the country. It's been around, Tracy, for how long? How long is?
I know it's a longer amount of time than we were thinking, but I know when we talked about healthcare, because that was my concern too, is that, you know, what kind of spaces are these used in, you know, and when they mentioned the hospitals and the big campuses that it's used across, and those have been, you know, for 10 plus years. I don't actually know the born on date for the needlepoint bipolar ionization. So we
been used though for a while. It's been,
yeah.
And I think what's happened is because of the COVID, people were not that concerned about indoor air quality like they are now. Anytime there's a pandemic or some kind of a reason, fires where you have, you know, outside sources that are contributing to either smells or some kind of a problem, then it becomes an issue. I know in like casinos, we do a lot of work with casinos, and over the years, I've seen different products where they've come in and set up, you know, small little boxes that collect, you know, use either ionization or use some other kind of technology to help with smells. And, you know, I've seen those there, but IAQ situations like this haven't been as, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I don't get a lot of calls and questions about it until there's something like a COVID situation, and then it becomes right up at the front of everything. And so we've been very busy with it, and it's worked very well. But like I say, it's not just here; it's across the entire country. So that product is being installed in a lot of places.
That's right. And even when we were sold on the ease of installation, there are some intricacies with the electrical. You know, we had found that, you know, installing the wires a different way affects the ion output. So even the simplest technologies, there are still some details you have to pay attention to. It's not, you know, initially it sounded like, oh, too good to be true, so easy, and we can assure you that it is easy, but there is some detailing out to it. So it's not one of these too good to be true kind of things. It's a good product, and pay attention to how you apply and how you install it. So just like any other tried and true product that we've seen. So that was good. And then, yeah, like Andy said, even with paying attention to just basic maintenance, even if you're, you know, changing belts and filters, you know, nobody, you know, not nobody, but COVID gave an opportunity for people to really pay attention to ventilation, to humidity control, which impacts, you know, how you know, indoor air quality, you know, things that we didn't have time for before, that you know, we as an industry and as building owners and customers don't always have time for resources. You know, it's everybody, right? So now we've been able to put some more attention on this and take care of all of those things, and get to use some of these technologies. So, I mean, that's our final note is have an action plan and make it a smart plan. There is no one cure, one, magic button, but it doesn't take that much energy to say, this is the kind of system we have. This is the kind of space that we have. This is the kind of solution we should use for that, or come up with 2 or 3 solutions for a particular building. So we've been able to help customers go from totally overwhelmed and what do we do to, hey, let's just look at space by space, take a step back and breathe on it, So call your experts, discuss what your current maintenance program is, whether you know it or not, and see what you're doing, see what else you would like to be doing, and then think about, are there spaces where we can't add extra filtration, or do some of the basic things, but we can add little ionization strips that will help improve air quality. So,
and as you said, when you're maintaining the system, it's going to operate better, and then it's going to operate more efficiently. The equipment's also going to last longer. So goes back to our CREGG of, green, taking care of your equipment, making sure it has the right maintenance program, and now incorporating these kind of technologies. We really are staying very green, and you're going to have the savings.
You're absolutely
as well.
right. Working systems equal efficient systems.
Yeah.
Energy efficiency, right? There's nothing more basic than that. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
And the utilities understand that, because the utilities have sponsored incentive programs to their customers to get them to incorporate a better preventive maintenance plan in the past, and they've worked really, really well and saved millions of dollars for customers across Southern California. We did a big program like that with Edison, with SCE, and they put those programs together because they realize people do not take it serious. Customers don't understand the value of doing a thorough, proper maintenance, not going overboard, but doing a thorough maintenance with specific tasks. So they were incentivizing people to do it, and we were heavily involved in that program with them, and it paid off big time. They saved tons of energy on it, and it was a market transformation concept. We're gonna create that so people will continue doing that. Whether that goes on or not, who knows? We've been through these before, and people kind of slip back into their old ways a lot of times. But it definitely worked, and it paid off enormously for energy savings, and for the customers that bought that program. It was a good thing.
Absolutely. And then we just had some examples, because we get talking about, okay, what could I be doing? What are some of the solutions? And so these are just sample. Again, it's just talking to your experts, or bringing an expert to have a short discussion. It's you can figure out your plan in a couple of hours with the largest campuses that we've walked through. You spend a half a day, and we can tell you exactly what kind of systems you have. What kind of ventilation? Are there any restrictions? Do you have demand control? Do you have things that are optimized already that you don't want to touch, but you want to, increase ventilation? Are you controlling humidity? Is that something you want to look at? So we just wanted to include this in the slides, just some things to think about, not necessarily have to do step 1, 2, 3, but just making sure that you're thinking of, things like filtration, of things like ventilation, of things like coil cleaning, supplemental air cleaners. So what Andy was talking about with the things that utilities incentivize, they have money for doing retro commissioning or a tune-up, and all that means is just testing your systems and making sure that they work, and doing the repairs so that they work to a T, and you can, have those maximized efficiency, optimized systems. So, and then, always a disclaimer, make sure that, when you're increasing things like ventilation or filtration, that you don't have those energy impacts. We see that increasing filtration, like Andy said, doesn't really impact the energy. So that's why you see Title 24, which is energy related, pushing for better filtration. That's information until we started doing these filter upgrades that we didn't have. So it's been nice. It's been a nice result of this pandemic, making sure that your system capacity and performance, that your equipment allows you to do some of these measures. And again, we can't say it enough, make sure everything's in working order first.
Tracey, we had a question. If you have MERV 13, oh no, I'm sorry, is MERV 13 still required with continuous ionization? So you always need your filtration?
Yes.
You always need filtration.
Okay.
You don't have to have 13. You don't have, well, so if
not necessarily 13, right?
Well, but it's interesting. I was talking to one of our filter reps a little while back, and he's telling me that now with the new Title 24, that any new construction, any new building that's built, it is required to have MERV 13s from the very beginning. And now with systems, existing systems, they're also, if you got a return to work programs and so forth, like things like that, but they're requiring MERV 13s in those buildings, or at least something, if they feel they can't handle the MERV 13, they want something that's even, if it's more efficient than the normal MERV, 8s that everybody has been putting in. That's my MERV 8 filter is about a 35% efficiency rated filter. And the MERV 13s, I think, are about 85%. And so there was a concern about the pressure drop, the amount of energy it took in the air force to push through those filters on going up to a higher rated filter like that. And they're finding that it's really not having an effect. We were looking at some schools that wanted us to do some ventilation checks and see if some of the units that they had that were old were able to handle a MERV 13 versus an 8. And it's surprising. We've been always told, oh, that's a big deal going from an 8 to a 13, but the pressure drop is showing that it's not really necessary. It doesn't really have an effect. You don't necessarily have to turn up your fan speed to to get that air push through there, which costs more, more money and uses more energy. It's showing that it's not necessarily a problem at all. So, so there's a lot of misinformation going on, and especially in these kind of things, and you'll hear that about the ionization things. I've heard people say I wouldn't be interested at all. And one of my customers, and I don't know if this has ever happened to anybody, but they talked about a term they call agglomeration because of those ion particles collecting the other particles, and it just drops or goes through the filter. And does it cause clogging, or is it what happens when it all starts building up? And Tracey answered that one for me, that it was their molecule size, their minor size, particles, so it doesn't cause anything. But one of my customers was completely concerned about that. So a lot of misinformation and questions.
When you don't know, they're legitimate questions, even about things sticking, and the question about is there going to be a sticky film over anything or any kind of film? I mean, when you don't know about it, I mean, that sounds like a legitimate question. So we've been sensitive to answering all of that. As far as the minimum filtration, I think the lowest we go, even with the ionization, is 8 MERV 8. So we always recommend more, and it's as budgets and availability dictates, right, Andy?
Yep. Yeah, there was a problem getting MERV 13s for a while. I think they kind of got caught up now, but yeah, they are quite a bit more expensive though. But that's what everybody's calling for. So.
It's interesting because one of the lead credits used to be that you'd have an upgrade to MERV 13, and now that's the standard. So yeah. Maybe they knew what they were talking about.
So we have a lot of great questions here. On that point, well, the first one would be, is the ionization supposed to be left on 24/7? And what type of spaces, I guess, does it work best in? Like, does it work well in a big gym, smaller spaces? How is it scaled?
Yeah, so to scale to spaces, you just want to select the right product, right? So that's based on airflow and your main air handler size, because that unit is also sized to treat the space, to get the air moving around. So as long as the ionization unit is sized for the coil and for that equipment, it will treat the space. And as long as you have that output and you're reading, that 1500 ions per cubic centimeter for positive and negative ions, then it's all good. The manufacturers for larger air handling equipment, they have them in like 6-inch sections, and they're built based on the size of your unit. So it's just making sure that you're selecting and having enough of that equipment and in the right locations in the unit to be able for the ions to get to the space. And then as far as leaving things on 24/7, it uses such little power. So it doesn't even take a dedicated circuit to it. So the best thing is to leave it on 24/7, because then it's working all the time. It's treating that air constantly. Of course, if the unit's not on, you can probably shut it off then. It's no big deal, but we leave it running 24/7. That's the recommendation if you're moving air. Have the ionization on. It's one of the things with the power is because it uses such little energy, like part of a circuit that we're really not worried about. It was kind of convenient for adding the equipment to whatever kind of air handling system you have, and then convenient for making sure that we're not using energy to do this, so you can leave it running. It's not like leaving a bigger piece of equipment on. So It's really nice that way.
That's excellent. This kind of piggybacking, we have a question saying, what is the energy utilization of the NPBI and UV approaches? And then specifically during grid outages, when energy might need to be conserved, can the purification systems be used without the temperature adjusting features of the HVAC system?
Yeah, we're talking fractional amps here, so it's not even, I don't even think it's measurable. If you had to add it up for an energy calculation, I think it would be negligible. And I don't remember, because we looked at this a year ago, and that's probably the last time I personally looked at the electrical. And I don't know if Andy knows offhand how much power it uses, but it's
not much. I don't have a number for that, but it is not much.
It's like less than a light bulb, very, very little.
Like that, yeah.
That's good. That makes sense then, right? That's not a negative to the equipment that it's consuming, in that therefore you should leave it on 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Another big part of that too, the one advantage is like we mentioned before, the maintenance part of it. There really is very, very little maintenance to do on these. You basically just wipe the system down. I take care of a big hospital, and they have UV, and we work with them, we replace their bulbs and provide them and so forth. The time it takes to do that UV bulb switch out, and we have to do it at certain times. We have to shut the unit down, and it is so time consuming. It's very expensive to do that. So one of the advantages of the point is there's very little to almost no maintenance involved in it. That's a big plus. It really is, because it's expensive to do the UV bulb change outs and install them and everything. So,
Andy, we did have a question about the timing, if there was a recommended schedule, and how often these items should be checked or tested.
On standard preventive maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good question. So yeah, it really depends on the application and the type of facility it is. The standard that we normally do and that we find is quarterly. There is no regulations for that, although there are applications where there are regulations where things have to be maintained on a more frequent basis. But quarterly is usually the way we do it. It depends on the type of system also. A lot of times, most of the time, what we recommend is you do kind of like a 3-in-1, where you're doing 3 quarterly regular preventive maintenance. We'll call them inspections. It goes beyond that, but it's 3 quarterly visits like that. And then they'll do like an annual service for the 4th visit, which can include ancillary type services like coil cleaning. Coil cleaning is one of the most important things you can do to keep your unit running efficiently and it saves breakdowns, it saves compressors. That coil cleaning part of the job, which is the most mundane part, that you're just cleaning and hosing down those coils. It's one of the most important things you can do in the entire service. And people, sometimes they don't want to do it or whatever, which doesn't make sense. But but a lot of times we'll include that in that fourth service, an annual, so a 3-in-1 type situation. But still, it's quarterly. Usually, that seems to be the kind of the standard throughout the industry. But I've got customers that require that it's just what they want to do. They want to do it monthly. They want all the equipment checked monthly, and anything less than quarterly, I'd be hesitant with that, just because if you look at the amount of time that those, just say the rooftop air conditioners, the amount of time those are running compared to your automobile. Okay, if you commute 50 miles a day one way, that's 100 miles a day, probably 2 hours each way. So that's 4 hours. You're running your car 4 hours a day. You have a mileage that you kind of focus on when I need to change the oil and do the regular service on the car, but oil changes. When you compare that to an AC unit that is running sometimes 8 to 14 hours a day, sometimes 5, sometimes 7 days a week, those machines are working way more and way harder than your car is. They require more service. They require more than just a 6-month service, in my opinion. You're just going to start having problems, breakdowns, and costly repairs. And then you have to kind of add in, well, what does that do to the income of your business and the frustration of it, or tenant dissatisfaction? Since we don't have standards for that, quarterly to me would be at a minimum. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, great. We had a great question. What are the limitations of ionization and how do you propose to overcome them?
Well,
maybe we can start with the limitations.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a limitation, but it's a word of caution is just making sure that you're selecting the right equipment with the right output, right? So it's useless to snap any technology on, and it's not providing the level of effectiveness. So just like with the UV, if you buy bulbs that are cheap and don't have the the right intensities and things to them, don't have the right output, then they're not going to work, right? It's going to be some fancy new jewelry that you've put on your systems and will do nothing. So our caution is to make sure that you're using good commercial equipment, because we see things that are desktop items that you can buy on Amazon that claim to be ionization, that are ozone/ion machines, and they're interesting. We've played with a bunch of them in our offices just for fun. They have almost no output to them, so I'm not sure what they do, but you want to make sure that you're using the right equipment, good quality equipment, with the right outputs. And then just knowing that the electrical is different, right? So normally we can coil wires up on control components of air handling equipment and keep things everything nice and tucked. But on ionization, because it's so because you're involving electrically charged particles, to produce those, when you coil wires up around this equipment, it creates these electrical fields where you could be repelling ions, and so that could interfere with the actual output. So there's the manufacturers already, they've come across this, they see that it affects output. So if you just read the installation manual, not a limitation, right? If you install it according to that, but it's counterintuitive to how we install a lot of other products in those same units. So if you just say, I know how to install this electrical. Same thing with taking readings. I saw a question about how can you inexpensively make sure that you're getting the ions out into the space. There are handheld units. And we had clients that purchased those, and instead of installing a meter which the manufacturer also has, is that you can install something permanently that tells you exactly what you're producing and what the output is and where it's reaching to in certain parts of the space. You can check that by handheld meter, but you have to think of how static electricity works and how charged particles work. So we had customers that were walking around and not grounding themselves, which is another important thing that you need to think about is making sure that the unit is grounded so that it can release the charged particles into the air. So it gets into a little bit of like electricity, physics, science, but knowing that and knowing how to use the meter and how to ground that and take readings, they were seeing nothing. We see 0 ions, which, there's always ions in a space naturally occurring. So once you see 0, that tells me the meter, something's wrong with that. So it was just the way they were taking the measurements. So it's actual, a little bit of installation intricacy and just knowing those few things, how to measure, how to know that the units are working. Once you do a handful and see how to do them right, there's no limitation on that. And again, super easy. A lot of the components are magnetic and just can magnetically go on, be stuck onto the equipment. They have smaller little boxes that have little brushes on them and that have like this rotating bar on the top that cleans the brushes every once in a while. And that's just a little box that sticks on the unit to emit the ions. So, other than making sure that you've got the installation down and are selecting and installing right, it's just the perception. We don't want to install anything that scares anybody, so we don't need to push this if somebody's going to be uncomfortable, if they feel like it's too new or something like that. We like it for certain reasons that we've listed and we've used it, and it's got, for us, it's got a good track record, but that's not always going to be for everybody. So especially now with new information coming along, we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, that people visiting your spaces feel comfortable, and that this, that we're not creating a new hazard or worry just because people don't understand what this stuff is. So it's education then also.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you guys so much. It's been really helpful as we're all navigating these uncharted waters. It's really nice to just have some direction, I think, on where to start to even begin, and to understand that there's a lot out there. And I think to me, it sounds like the most sane plan is to give you experts a call and help really quantify and identify what's needed. So we appreciate your time being here. We know you're super, super busy. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for all your fantastic questions. We are going to make the presentation available. We'll have the video recording available as well in the coming days. And Andy and Tracey, if you have your contact information on a slide handy, you can pull that up. Otherwise, we have made that available in our email communication. So I would definitely, if you have any additional questions for them, reach out, give them a call.
Yeah, or let us know. Thank you so much, Andy and Tracey, for bringing this very important topic to us and helping us understand it. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or is interested in this product, let us know. Green Economy is working in this area. So we'd love to help any building owner or manager, engineer. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.
We'll see you next month.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you next time.